All right, guys, it should be live. Thank you all for joining me today. I'm going to be joined by Carlos Gomez and Gen Z Patriot today. So again appreciate everyone joining us today. So we're going to go ahead and start off with Carlos giving us an update on what's going on with his current lawsuit against his school district, or his school at least. We're going to go ahead and start off with him, and then we're going to move on after he gives us that update. We're going to go ahead and move on to the central discussion of this live stream. Should be like less than an hour. It's going to be like less than an hour long debate about just disease and vaccinations, etc. I think this is going to be a continuation of the discussion that me and Gen Z had in the previous live stream. So Gomez, go ahead and give us an update about what's going on with your school.
So Monday was my first day back because on Friday and Thursday my mom was in the hospital, so I didn't go to school those days. So on Monday, second bell, which was my second classroom, uh, they brought me outside of the class and they were asking me like a whole bunch of questions, asking me if I would like to talk, and the principal actually told me that the vice principal was quote unquote just having a bad day and he wasn't himself. Um, Anyways, that same day, uh, I was told not to, say anything because, I don't want to say anything that's going to hurt me, I guess, if we do go to court, which it's already confirmed we will be going to file a lawsuit very soon. And actually, the NRA, National Rifle Association, got a hold of me via email, and
Really?
yeah, and they told me to tell my lawyer to get a hold of them. So that's a very big win for us. It will eventually, hopefully, lead to a win in court.
Wow, that's actually really cool that that the NRA is contacting you. Have you already referred that to your lawyer
Yes,
already?
yes.
Okay. Well, go ahead and keep us updated on that. I'm actually really excited to see where that case goes. My biggest worry is that basically you're like, and I think me and Gen Z kind of talked about this the other day. That we're basically kind of worried that the judge is just going to kind of look at it and then have the possibility of throwing it out. But I mean, I believe you also even said showed us something today that basically said that there is precedent for this. Back in 2004, there was a case in which someone was suing their school district because they suspended him for refusing to take off a jacket that had the picture of a rifle on it. So there's a lot of precedent there, and we'll go ahead and just keep us updated, see where it goes, and I'll make sure to post updates to my channel as well.
Yeah, I think I've actually looked at it though, and if they're pulling him out of class and if they're calling his family, that there is a really good case for him because they're you could make an argument that they're giving him distress and that they're making his grades fell because he didn't take off his sweatshirt.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing about it is that he basically did comply whenever he was asked to do it, but like, I mean, there's still a lot of hypocrisy uh, that is surrounding that decision. So that's one of the biggest things about it is that it's just hypocrisy, and they're basically like having double standards whenever it comes to one side, and then they're just like, oh, I understand no justice, no peace, but a rifle on a shirt, that's too far. So that's one of the biggest hypocritical moves I've ever seen, of at least in recent memory.
For
And
sure.
honestly, I feel like that's probably my biggest problem is the hypocrisy, the double standards in my school system. Because if you're a teacher talking trash about Biden or Bernie, which I think shouldn't be allowed, I know Bernie's not president, but he was still a presidential candidate. or Hillary or whatever. I feel like teachers should not be able to do that, because that's literally brainwashing their kids into thinking a certain way, and that's not the job of the teachers. The teachers are supposed to give you the facts, and then you come out with an opinion. But my school doesn't do that. They are very left leaning. The kids are about 6 Democrats to 4 Republicans. The people who do care about politics, anyway. But yeah, that's just how it flows in my school.
Yeah. Okay. But go ahead and keep us updated. And so I guess we're going to go ahead and move on to the main topic of discussion, which is going to be a debate between me and Gen Z. If you guys actually were a part of the last live stream that we were in, essentially it was a discussion about mask mandates, about disease in general. Gen Z had a lot of thoughts about the flu and all that. So I wanted to go. I guess this is going to be a continuation of that. So Gen Z, if you want to go ahead and lead us off and kind of like just get us a footing into where your main concerns are.
Okay. So yeah, my problem with the COVID vaccine right now, and again, I'm just gonna make my position clear at the beginning, is as a kid, I'm not taking the vaccine and I will not take the COVID vaccine. But again, if I was older, there is a higher risk that you'll die of the COVID-19 than the vaccine, of course. So to clear it up, I would take the vaccine if I was older, or if I was in a different category. But with me right now, as a 14-year-old kid, I'm not taking the vaccine because there's not enough testing done on the vaccine to show that there are no side effects to the vaccine, and to show that there's no real other side effects that could happen to you. Where I'm fine if I get COVID because there's only 100 kids under the age of 18 that died. And I feel for me, there's a bigger chance I could get sick of the vaccine than if I actually get COVID right now with my health conditions.
Okay, so that's one of the biggest things. And at least whenever it comes in terms to the type of vaccine that you're getting. So there are 3 types of vaccines, if you're familiar with them. It's Johnson & Johnson, it's Moderna, and then it's Pfizer. So Pfizer and Moderna, if you're familiar with them, so both of them use a brand new type of vaccination. I'm going to say, trying to figure out the correct wording for this. They basically use mRNA, and the Johnson & Johnson actually uses dead virus cells in order to effectively become a vaccine against the disease. So are you at all familiar with how vaccines work? Or are you just saying that because it's a brand new shot and you don't want to take it and then, like have just something happen to you, like get cerebral palsy in 5 years or something like that?
I'm mostly saying it because there's not that much there's testing, of course, on the vaccine. They've been testing it for over a year, but they haven't been able to test it throughout time, and they don't know maybe the future they don't know the future, what is it called, future side effects that it could hold. And yes, I have looked at the numbers for kids under my age that have got COVID that have died. And yes, of course, there's still a possibility that I would die, but I'd rather take that risk right now than get the vaccine and maybe in the future have a risk. And maybe, of course, there's a lower chance I could die from the vaccine in the future. But I've weighed out the risk, and in my opinion, I think there's more of a possibility I could get sick from the vaccine than COVID itself.
So you're saying that you would rather get the disease that it's protecting you against and possibly have the chance of being put on a ventilator rather than possibly just getting the vaccine itself and then, going on with your life. And I mean, if there is a side effect and you're and doctors are able to prove that, if you were to die from it, then that's one scenario. But I'm like, do you think that vaccines, whenever you're administered them with whenever you're born, do you think that those contribute to kids being diagnosed with autism?
I think there could be a correlation, but I'm not too sure on that.
But you're leaving the door open to say that they may contribute to autism diagnoses, but then you want to turn around and say like, oh well, the COVID vaccine, like, because I mean, if you're able to present evidence that,
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's my point. I'm saying that there could be future side effects that we don't know about yet. That's my point. It hasn't been tested long enough.
But the vaccines that have been administered to you were you vaccinated whenever you were a child and whenever you were born?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was. I mean, I know I've been vaccinated.
Have you ever been diagnosed with autism?
Sure. No.
You haven't?
No.
So how old are you?
14.
So you're 14 years old. You've had 14 years of testing on the vaccines that you've been given, whatever they were made by. I'm not really familiar with that, but you've had 14 years to decide to have a diagnosis of autism, but you haven't had a diagnosis of autism yet. So
yeah,
what's the difference between would you vaccinate your own child if whenever you have kids, at least what you're thinking right now?
Well, you mean like young kids, like 5 or 6?
Like whenever they're born, whenever the same time you get your vaccine.
Yeah, it depends on the vaccine. I know there's some vaccines that are really risky and they've had a lot of side effects. But yeah, most of the vaccines I vaccinate my kids with.
So what's the difference between? So why would you vaccinate your kids, but then not want to vaccinate yourself or possibly your future kids with the COVID vaccine?
I'm saying COVID vaccine because there maybe in the future if there's future testing. But I'm saying right now the COVID vaccine is so new and so fresh that we haven't had a lot of testing done on it, and there hasn't been a lot of what is it called, like research for over time.
Because there wasn't any time to do that. That's the thing about
that's the thing
about novel pandemics is that you don't really have the time to vaccinate to not you don't really have the time because you can't just sit there and say, oh hey, we don't have enough testing on this, so let's go ahead and because they do human trials. I remember I actually applied for a human trial of one of the COVID vaccines, and they do that for a little bit, and then that's whenever they say, okay, this is pretty effective, let's go ahead and release this to the public.
Yeah, but why would I take the risk of not knowing what it could do in the future if there's a 99.8% survival rate of COVID, and under my age, there's only been less than 100 people that have died from it? Why would I take that risk if there's like basically no chance? There's basically a 0% chance in both cases that I'll die. So why can't I just choose?
Because this disease has killed upwards of about 10 million people in the world.
Yeah, but for kids, less than 100.
What's your source on that?
Oh, I'll actually put it in the chat right now.
You're saying that less than 100 kids have died of COVID
under the age of 18. Yes, and I'll link you the source right now. Okay, let me find it. Let me make sure this is the right one. One sec. Okay, one sec. I'm just finding the source. Okay.
So in between 2020 and 2021, according to the CDC, 44,000 people between 0 and 17 have died of COVID.
No, that is not correct. I'll find
At
it.
least from all causes. It says COVID-19, pneumonia, COVID-19 and pneumonia.
No, I promise you that's not correct. I'll find it right now. I just didn't have this ready. Okay, how many? Okay, one sec. Okay, keep talking.
Okay, so one of the biggest things is that because you talked about side effects earlier, and yeah, I mean, of course, there's going to be side effects whenever you get hit, but whenever you get a vaccine. I actually had side effects whenever I got the vaccine.
Okay,
Like,
I put it in the chat. I put it in the YouTube chat. I could put it in the private chat too.
YouTube chat. You should probably put it in the private chat because I don't know if it's going to be able to show in the YouTube chat.
Yeah, there. I just put it in private.
Did you put it in a? Oh,
Yeah, private chat.
That private. Okay. All right, let's look at this. Washington Post. See, that's the thing, though, is that you're saying that, yeah. I mean, you're very likely not to die from COVID. You know, you're very likely not to die. You know, being if you're in between the ages of 0 and 17. But one of the things is that COVID diseases like this, they don't necessarily go away. It's not just going to fall off the face of the earth like by the time we hit 80-90% vaccinated across the United States. It's basically, and what they're afraid of is that it's basically going to become a seasonal flu. And the thing about that is, I mean, we deal with things like measles, we deal with things like polio, we deal with things like the seasonal flu that circulate around for many, many years. And I mean, it's going to take years for this thing to go away. So and the thing about that is that, yeah, you're 16 right now, but you're not going to be 16 forever. You're going to get older.
That's why I've said I'll take the vaccine in the future.
So even your parents have said, like, they don't want you to get vaccinated.
They don't really care. They're kind of leaving the choice up to me.
I don't know. I mean, that's one of the biggest things about it is that it's
like my mom got vaccinated, but my dad didn't.
And I don't know. It's just a hard. If that's going to be your choice, because I'm not going to sit here and just say like, I'm not just going to sit here and say like, oh well, you're just gonna get vaccinated. I'm not going to sit here and just say like you're endangering everyone else and all that. And that's one of the biggest things about it is that, if you're not going to get vaccinated, you at least need to take precautions for yourself and for some of those people around you. And, not
masks though, because masks have been really proven not to work. Would you agree?
Any sensible person that has any knowledge of pandemics would say that masks are just a guard, but they're not a certainty to not get sick.
Exactly.
I've been wearing masks this entire time, and I've never gotten COVID, and none of my family has gotten COVID.
But I normally don't wear a mask, and I actually went to school for like 6 months, and I didn't get COVID either, so I got tested all the time.
But why not wear a mask?
No, I do wear a mask to places that require it. Like I'm not gonna, but places that ask me to wear a mask, I will wear a mask. But if I'm just around my family or my close friends, there's no point in it. If I'm around them all the time anyway.
Yeah, but so why? So are you gonna wear a mask? If you go to a concert or if you go to just anywhere? Like, are you willing to wear? I'm not sitting here saying you should wear a mask whenever you're into in the area of your private residence or something like that, or if you go into a park or something like that. I mean, sometimes it
Yeah,
depends on what kind of park you're going to.
if you're outside, I wouldn't wear it for sure. Especially if you're social distance. But yeah, if they require a mask, I'll wear it. I mean, if they don't require it and no one's wearing it, probably not. I probably won't suffocate myself. But if they require a mask, yeah, I'm willing to wear it. It's not that difficult.
Yeah, see, that's one of the biggest things is everyone. I mean, look, we got someone in chat that says this woman in Macy's told me to wear a mask, and I put up a fight. She started flipping out, and I called her a effing B. And I mean, like, what kind of that's the type of stuff that I'm talking about. Is that you're basically are nothing but petri dishes. But the thing is that you're basically saying that you don't want to wear a mask just because someone is telling you to wear a mask, because the CDC is telling you to wear a mask.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. If nowhere required a mask, I wouldn't wear one. Like, I probably wouldn't wear one. But if places do require a mask, I'm not going to put up a fight. Like, if they ask me to, it's their business, and I'll be respectful and wear one because it's not that difficult. But if like places didn't require a mask, I don't wear one.
CDC dropped the mask mandate, yeah, but they had a mask mandate like way before that. Like, did you do that after the mask mandate? Did you do that before the mask mandate? I mean, whenever the mask mandate was still alive, were you still wearing a mask? Like I don't really know that.
Yeah, but like I wouldn't, like he said, I wouldn't freak out on someone. I mean, I'll just be respectful. If I have to go somewhere to wear a mask, I'll just wear it. It's not that difficult. I'm usually only somewhere for 10 minutes. I mean, if places don't require a mask, I'm not going to put one over my face. But if they do, I mean, it's fine. I'm not going to die from it.
I mean, there's still a possibility. I mean, you basically have the same...
not saying I'm not going to die from the mask.
You basically have the same chance of dying from, at your age, you have the same chance of dying of COVID you have the same chance of dying of COVID as you do of getting hospitalized with the seasonal flu.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest things. And I mean, that's what the I'm okay. I'm sorry for that. I was sitting there. I have all these sources open, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening, and I just hear this video start playing, and I'm just like, okay, which tab is that? I apologize for that.
You're all right.
More likely to die from seasonal flu for kids. I mean, kind of.
I think that's actually true. That you are more likely to die from seasonal flu.
I mean, if you're like under 5, but if you're in between the age of like 8 and 17, I mean,
it's about the same. It's about the same.
I wouldn't really say that. See, what I also wanted to talk about, and I have a bunch of sources open for this, because you made a comment in the previous one where it's just like, should we scroll up? I posted the statistics. If you posted a link, it's not gonna show because I have it set to where it blocks links.
Yeah, just put it in private chat.
Well, he said it's a Tony A. He's in chat, so he doesn't have a way to do that. If you could join my Discord and send it to the Discord general.
Why don't you just unblock links?
I'm not trying to get anyone else or myself fished. So, but anyway, what I also wanted to talk about is you basically made a comment in the previous live stream where you're basically like, oh, well, I mean, does that mean we need to mask up for the flu? Do we need to do this for the flu? Do that for the flu? Because you were making a lot of comparisons to the flu. Do you want to kind of reiterate what you meant about that?
Yeah, my point is for that was actually Tony A actually brought up my point. For kids my age, I could compare it to the seasonal flu for me because it's just as deadly as the seasonal flu, and it hospitalizes just as many people as the COVID-19. The seasonal flu and COVID-19 hospitalize and kill about the same amount as people for kids my age. So, in that comparison, should I wear a mask for the seasonal flu because I have just about the same amount of chance of dying and just around the same amount of chance of getting hospitalized?
But just because the you have a very low chance of dying from it, then why do you support the stance of not being restricted because you might not die from it, but that's not the same case for people that are way older than you?
Okay, then people that are way older, if they're worried about it, they could get the vaccine.
But we didn't have so what I'm talking about mainly is whenever these things just happen, whenever we don't have a vaccine. Because yeah, we do have a vaccine now. If you want to get it, you can go get it, as I have.
But we're talking about the vaccine, so that doesn't make sense.
I'm talking about vaccines, but we're also talking about just pandemics in general, about restrictions.
No, but you just said that why wouldn't you take the vaccine if it gives another person a higher chance of dying? And then you said, but we don't have the vaccine, so that
okay.
Doesn't
for
even
some
make
reason,
sense.
I thought we're kind of like going off of masks too, so it's kind of like more of a mixed question about masks.
We just talked about masks. I said I'm okay with masks as long most of the time.
This debate is about to get heated. No, it's not. Okay, so my point was basically that, I mean, and for one thing, I mean, like there is a flu shot, every year. Thing about that is that the flu always ends up mutating every year. So trying to get my bearings again. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that, because I was basically kind of talking about the masks and just kind of like taking precautions and all that, because this is what I hear repeated a lot by a lot of different people, is that oh well, I mean I'm not going to live in fear, I'm not going to live in worry or something like that, because I mean I've heard you say that a lot, and I mean
I think that I agree. I don't think you should live in fear, and I don't like wearing my mask because it makes people more fearful, and the mask prevents very little harm. But all my point is if a business asks you to wear a mask, I don't think you should be forced to wear a mask, but just for me personally, I'll just wear it because it's a piece of cloth. It doesn't really matter. But for the most part, I don't think people should be forced to wear a mask. But just for me, it's a very little sacrifice I have to do to live in the great America right now. So I'm okay with it.
So you're saying that even whenever a pandemic just starts up, you don't think that we should wear masks?
I don't think you should be forced to wear a mask, no.
Not even when... Okay, here. So this will actually turn in perfectly into this discussion that I wanted to get into. Are you at all familiar with what an R naught is?
No idea.
Okay, so an R naught, R0, if you look it up, it's another term for something called the basic reproduction number. So otherwise it's called an R naught. An R naught is essentially a mathematic calculation that calculates how many people a disease can spread to. So one of the things about an R naught is that, and this kind of extends into, what the flu discussion and then also into COVID, because you say oh, well, why don't we do that for the flu? So the seasonal flu, has an R naught of 1. And measles, I believe, is 3. But the thing about COVID is that, we have... the CDC is taking calculations on this and has said that the R naught of COVID ranges in between 2 and nearly 7. So that number essentially means if I get infected with COVID, then I can essentially infect up to 2, at a minimum of 2 other people, and a maximum of 7 people.
Yeah, but again, that's just because we're talking about masks, though, and that goes back to my point that masks do very little. They don't
masks
stop
are
very much.
still a defense, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, but they defend very little, so I don't think we should be forced to have to wear a mask. Like,
so you don't think that? Okay, so
no, I believe in liberty, and I don't think that you should be I don't think you should be forced to put a face cloth over your face like they have to do in some countries if you're Muslim.
Do you think that it is reasonable for people to be able to have different ways to defend themselves against crime, against a tyrannical government, against any type of violence that may protrude into their home or into the streets outside their home?
Sorry, what do you mean by that?
So essentially, do you feel like that it is okay for people to, purchase weapons in order to defend themselves, to, build up barriers for their homes, fencing, lock their doors type of thing?
Yeah.
Do you think that's okay for people to do?
Yeah.
Okay. So they do that because they want to protect themselves from people that want to do them harm, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so making it a requirement, especially whenever a novel pandemic starts up, why do you think that it is a castle doctrine? Thank you, Seb. So essentially what I was talking about was castle doctrine. Do you support castle doctrine?
I actually don't even know what that is.
Castle doctrine is essentially another, I wouldn't say another term. It's so if you know what a stand your ground law is, stand your ground, the castle doctrine is essentially another type of law for castle doctrine is essentially another type of law for stand your ground, but it essentially only applies to your home or your car. And essentially my point about it that I'm trying to get to is that with COVID and with just pandemics in general, why do you think that it is a bad thing for some governments to require you to say, hey, if you to stop this from spreading, we want you to not leave your house for a little bit. We want you to wear a mask whenever you go outside. We want you to do these certain types of things, and some of them could be required. But why does that end up turning it into a tyrannical thing whenever there is reasoning behind why they're doing it? Because it's not just like they're doing it just because they feel like it.
Like I said, businesses could do whatever they want because they're businesses, and I said I'll wear a mask if they ask me to. But the government shouldn't be in control of what you put over your face or what you look like.
Even whenever that is to protect the general population from a invisible disease.
Yes.
Because it's not about protecting. It's not about protecting someone specific. It's about protecting like that. And I mean, you talked about national security a few minutes ago. It's a national security issue. That's the thing about disease, is that it's a major national security issue. If you seriously, support national security, I mean, why would you be against protecting the homeland from invisible threats like the coronavirus?
Because you can't force people to wear things. You can't force people to put a cloth over their face.
So I agree that the federal government cannot tell me that I need to wear a mask over my face, because that would violate the 10th Amendment. But the states, however, have that right, because the 10th Amendment delegates them that power. It goes both ways. So that's one of the biggest things, is that yes, I understand that there is an issue with the government basically telling you, oh, basically telling you what you need to do or something like that. But they're not doing it just because they feel, they want to take your rights away or something.
But it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if it's violating it's like violating your
What
what you wear.
amendment would
And
it be violating?
I think it can fall into the 10th Amendment if the federal government is trying to try to make you wear a mask. But then again, the states could do that in the 10th Amendment. So
Yeah, but you also don't think that it's that the states are able to do that because it violates your rights. And that's what I want to ask. What right is it necessarily violating?
I don't know. I think it's like I would have to look that up, but I just think it's violating like your freedom of expression, kind of, because you're being forced to wear something over your face that you do not want to consent to wear.
And see, that's the other thing, is that it's just like, I mean, there was a lot of people that, whenever this pandemic first showed up, I mean, a lot of people downplayed it. They basically said, like, oh, this is just a cold, or it's just the flu or something like that. People who basically had no idea what a disease was, how it works, or just, how these types of things spread. And that's the thing, is, if you seriously think like, oh, wearing a mask saves your life, I'm not sitting here saying you're saving lives and you're like the second coming of Jesus whenever you wear a mask. Like, yeah, like, I think that's stupid that whenever people are just like wear a mask to save your life or something like that. I hate that, like, ad.
And again, I think
CDC
that in some places I'll wear a mask if a business requires me. Like outside, I won't wear it. In my house, I obviously won't wear it. With my friends, I won't wear it. But like if a business asks me to and I have to go into somewhere for, like, if someone requires me to wear a mask, I'll just wear it. I won't put up a fight. But like, you shouldn't have to wear a mask. Like the government or the state shouldn't force you to wear a mask.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I guess I'll ask again, like, where does it say that? Is that just your opinion, or are you just saying that because that's what you feel, or is there like a legitimate, I guess,
let me look it up one second.
Citation that you can show me, just saying like, this is what doesn't allow the government to do this. Yeah, freedom of expression. Freedom of expression, it has been interpreted as how you express yourself. Just for example, Carlos, his freedom of expression was violated whenever his school told him to take off the jacket that he was wearing. That's violating your freedom of expression.
Here, I have a good comparison, okay? Are you allowed to be home arrested for... Are you allowed to be home... Let me put it. Are you allowed to get a home arrest for no reason whatsoever at all, even if a jury doesn't convict you?
Home arrest? Are you talking about like house arrest?
Yeah. If a jury doesn't even convict you, you don't go to court, are you allowed to go under house arrest? Can the government just put you under? Okay.
But the government is not putting you under house arrest with the
Well, in some states like Hawaii, if you go there, you have to stay in a hotel for 3 weeks, and you just get one key. Okay, you get one key, and if you lock the door, you can't get back in. You have to pay a $5,000 fine for evading. You're evading the home arrest or whatever you like to call it.
See, okay. In my opinion, I believe that some of those lockdowns did go too far. Okay, if I could actually like put this on hold real quick, I need to answer a phone call, but I'll be back in like 2 seconds.
Right. Yeah, you're good. Imagine. That's fake, actually. I don't think liberals want people arrested for not wearing masks. My home state, Minnesota, did a good job though. Extreme either on the right or left is overall. I believe face mask mandates should be enforced in public places like supermarkets, churches, schools, etc., but not in other places, not necessarily like restaurants. Bruh, why? I've actually met people who said they want people who don't like masks in prison.
Okay, I'm back. I'm
All right.
sorry. Okay, so where were we at?
I was just saying the government doesn't have the right to put you in house arrest for not being convicted by a jury or not being convicted by a judge. So how do they have the right to lock you in a hotel room and they'll fine you if you come out?
But they're not fining you for coming out.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I'll show you the stats. For example, in Hawaii, if you flew there, you get to stay in a hotel room for, I think it was 3 months, and the key only works once. And if you can't get back in, they fine you $5,000.
What key?
So for example, you fly to Hawaii, okay? They give you a hotel room, okay? You go and stay in the hotel room, and it's a key that only works one time, okay? And if you leave the thing and try to get back in, it won't work, and they fine you $5,000.
See, okay, so one of the biggest things about that is I feel like Texas was a really good model for how a lockdown should work. Because,
but again, wait, but before
a lot of the places that you kind of like are discussing, Michigan, California, Hawaii, I believe to some extent Oregon and Washington. I mean, who runs those states? And I think a lot of us can answer that question. But I think there was a party disparity whenever it came in terms of lockdowns, because I feel like Democrats did go too far whenever it came to how a lockdown should be operated. Texas was really cool because it was basically like, okay, so this threat is here. We need to go ahead and stem how this disease will spread. I somewhat also kind of disagreed with like how he basically signed an executive order just because some lady was just like, oh, I'm gonna open my thing and you can go ahead and arrest me or something like that. I forgot her name, but she was in like Dallas, and she opened her shop. It was like hair salon or something like that.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. I think she ran for Shelley Luther. That was her name. But see, one of the things about it is just a lot of the people.
You're kind of ignoring what I was saying. How it's unconstitutional in a lot of states. Would you agree?
If you could tell me, because you're saying the thing about house arrest is that you are legally supposed to stay in your house.
Yeah, and same with the lockdowns in Hawaii or California.
But the lockdowns in Hawaii and California, you were still able to go outside, correct?
Not in Hawaii. In Hawaii, I already told you you had to stay in the hotel. I think it was for 3 or 2 weeks.
Can you show me that?
Come out. Yeah, sure. I'll get the thing right now.
Because the thing about it is that in most of the states, even in some of the most strictest states, they were allowing you to go out. It's just that you needed a necessity reason in order to go to, for example, like, if you're going to the store or something like that. But if you're like trying to go to, I'm trying to think of it, like a meetup or something like that, or if you're going to like a public area.
Well, still, the government is granting you the right to where you can and can't go,
but not without proper reasoning.
Yeah, so you have to explain to the government why they should give you the privilege where you can and can't go. Like, do you see what I mean? Like that's basically.
I understand what you mean. See, that's the thing. I understand where you're coming from. I absolutely do understand it because what you're basically saying is that why should the government tell me, a private citizen that has never done anything wrong in their entire lives, why should the government tell me what I can and cannot do?
Exactly.
But you then have to look at the other side and see that the only reason that they are doing that is to prevent you from getting sick, or to prevent
that's what
you
they're
from
saying,
getting
but
others sick.
That's what they're saying, but we're supposed to just exactly trust what they're saying. We're supposed to just be like, oh yeah, you're right. I believe
Okay.
you.
So now you say that. Why say it like that? Because I mean, we're discussing what, and I mean, I told you about, R knots and everything. Like, that's what my whole point was, is that, whenever it comes to R knots, whenever it comes to just pandemics, like, and I mean, if there was not a pandemic right now, I would be on your side, because they're basically coming in and saying you cannot do whatever.
But how do we know? How do we know? How do we know they didn't fabricate this pandemic so they could tell us what to do?
Well, okay, come on. Do you seriously believe that?
Be honest. Be honest. How do we know that they didn't, or maybe not the U.S. government, but how do we know that they didn't help create? I mean, I know it's a deadly pandemic; it's proven. But how do we know that they didn't fabricate it so they could tell us what to do? Yeah, they could say it's a pandemic, but is that the real reason?
I feel like that if this was a fabricated pandemic, then we would be in a much worse situation than we are in right now. Because the only way if this was a fabricated pandemic is if it was a bioweapon. But if it was a bioweapon developed by the Chinese, we would. I feel like the lockdowns that we would be in would look like the lockdowns that we were in a year ago would look like child's play compared to what it would be if this was a fabricated disease or a man-made disease. They are investigating, as Tony said, they are investigating whether this was developed by a Chinese lab. And
yeah, and I think that's possible. I think that's possible, so they could weaken our economy, but they don't want to make it too bad so that their own citizens don't get.
But there are so many things that you can do with the disease, but there are a lot of things
I also think China. I also think that China may have done it so that they could get Biden in office and get their trade deals.
No.
Look at it. China's getting way richer when Biden's president than when Trump stepped up to them.
Okay, so you're wrong there, because a lot of the Chinese development that we're looking at right now happened under Trump's presidency. I actually believe that was one of Trump's biggest failures, in my personal opinion, that he did not stop the rise of China. Because the rise of China has been happening for like 2 decades now. It was the failure of the Bush administration. It was the failure of the Obama administration. It was especially the failure of the Trump administration. Getting out of TPP was actually one of the biggest things. I think that TPP should have been renegotiated. I don't necessarily think that he should have left TPP. I did think that I was really happy that he left TPP, but now looking at the geopolitical effects of leaving TPP, it was actually a really bad move on his part, because he campaigned on it. That's the thing. He campaigned on it. But just the geopolitical standing right now of China.
But you're straying off. What I was saying was, how do we know that China didn't create this to weaken the United States economy?
And we're investigating that. That's the thing. So we won't know until that investigation is over with.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying is, if it does happen, like I think it's a high possibility. If it did happen, then isn't that partly the U.S. government's fault for telling us to stay inside because the Chinese government created this virus?
So you're saying that if the Chinese government actually did create this virus, then we're conceding something by having our citizens stay inside so they don't get infected by the Chinese-made virus.
Yes.
What are we conceding?
Well, even if some of the people in the I'm not a conspiracy. I'm not saying that all the people.
You're throwing around a lot of conspiracies.
Yeah, but I mean, how do we know? Like, be honest. Would you put it out of China's belt to create this virus?
Oh, absolutely not. Like if a lot of people on my channel know that I am firmly anti CCP. I absolutely feel like the CCP had something to do behind this, but we won't know until, that investigation is done and over with. But the thing about it is that I go off of the information that I know is a fact, or at least.
Okay, so then it's a fact that the government. Okay, so then it's a fact that the government is forcing people to stay inside when they weren't convicted of any crime.
And that's really what I want you to answer is, why do you think it's okay? I think I finally figured out a way to formulate this question. Why do you think it's safer for everyone to go outside without a mask during a brand new pandemic that was possibly created by the Chinese government, rather than for those people to just sit inside of their homes for 2 weeks at most and just
we were not inside for 2 weeks. No, they were not going to let us.
No. Okay, so at first, because one of the thing about it is that 2 weeks was basically what they were asking us to do at the very beginning. They said, okay, what needs to happen? The CDC came out and said, if there's going to be a lockdown, there needs to be a synchronized lockdown for 2 weeks at most. If we can at least have 2 weeks in order to do contact tracing and figure out where this came from, how it started, and just kind of like get all the sick people to know, because the 2 weeks was 2 weeks is the incubation period of this disease. So by the end of that 2 weeks, is if all of us just stayed in our homes and didn't go outside, didn't interact with anyone.
Is that possible? Do you really think that medical care people couldn't have gone to work, or people that worked in pharmacies couldn't have gone to give people medicine that would have died? Is that really possible?
Well, that's the thing, is that the essential businesses would have been open. Of course, the pharmacies are going to be open, grocery stores are going to be open. Walmart would still be open, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the businesses, whenever this pandemic first started, and I'm pretty sure exactly what an essential business is, those wouldn't have closed. But
all businesses are essential, though. Every business in America is essential.
I think everyone's job, yes, is essential, but again, we're talking about the priorities here, because if a grocery store shuts down, you're going to have to figure out where you're going to get your food from, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
But if a strip club closes down, what are you essentially missing?
I mean, you're not. Is that
really essential? Is a strip club essential?
The people that work there, yes, because they need a paycheck.
And I mean, if we're talking about that, I don't necessarily support this, but they need a paycheck. So what about, universal basic income, or things like, what do you call it? Just like a frequent stimulus checks to ensure that the people that are deemed not essential, still have the ability to pay bills by the government.
Because it's basically impossible to target those people.
We already did that 3 times.
No, it didn't work though. Money went to so many places that we waste. It went to so many stupid places.
Like what?
Places like I'm trying to think. There were some places like Amazon. I'm pretty sure Amazon got money from the government. Amazon didn't need money.
I'm specifically talking about stimulus checks. I'm not talking about a stimulus package, which is completely different. I'm talking about specifically payments to people that lost their jobs.
Yeah, but it's hard to tackle those exact people that lost their jobs because then people just won't go to work. So then they could just get paid by the government to do nothing.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with that because I know several people that are on unemployment, and that were on unemployment. They're not on it anymore. And I think it's stupid that we were basically. I think it should have been reworked. I think like if we kind of came out and said, for this is going to be this amount of money for this specific amount of time instead of funding it for the next like year and a half or something like that. I feel like we would have a better, because if we at least like add a time limit or add strings to that unemployment benefit, then a lot more people would be getting jobs right now. But it's just like now it's some sort of like political issue, just like
yeah, and even
like 21 million people are going to lose their unemployment benefits, and I'm like, okay, like fuck off. Like yeah, sure, whatever. I mean, that doesn't.
But even people are even getting paid more to stay home and do nothing than if they go out and get a job. So why would they go out and get a job? It makes no sense. Like there's been people that literally won't go get a job because they're getting paid more on unemployment. And I've actually known people that are getting paid more by the government to stay home than go out and get a job.
So do I. I think a lot of us know people like that. But I'm pretty sure that if we actually were able to see the statistics on it, that most of the people that were doing it were under the age of 30. Because it's just a lot of kids that were let go by their businesses, and then they said,
I mean, but be honest,
but then that actually Rowan actually makes a really good point about this. Just shows how shit pay is nowadays. So then that would say that's why we should increase the minimum wage. Or that's why.
But if you increase the minimum wage, it will just increase inflation, and then your dollar will just be worth less. So
inflation's going up right now, and we haven't increased the minimum wage.
Yeah, and that's my point. It's because we're giving money to everyone. That literally ties back to my point. It's because we're just printing money and giving it to people.
Yeah, I think it's and I'm not, I'm saying this, and just for clarification for those who are watching right now, I'm more so challenging some of the logic that I hear about, because my personal opinion on this is that I feel like Joe Biden is in danger of becoming the next Jimmy Carter in a lot of different ways. Like, I think I'm really worried about the increase in inflation, because if I actually look, let me actually pull this up real quick.
But then this all ties back to my point why we can't just close down the country, because we're raising inflation and we're printing out money to give to people. But then if we just shut down the country and give everyone under house arrest for no reason at all, and you take away their civil liberties, how are they going to pay?
I disagree with you. Like, you're saying it's for no reason at all. How is it for no reason?
I mean, I guess I clarify myself. There is a reason, but is it better that we just print out money and put our country into ruins by going way over inflation and having our dollar worth nothing?
If we didn't have the amount of debt that we have right now,
yeah,
would you support a policy like that?
Like what?
The ones that I've been offering, like the payments, the other things. Because a lot of people, are worried about the inflation and are worried about the debt. But
I mean, yeah, of course, if we weren't in high inflation right now, then why not? That's like the perfect. That's like the perfect
inflation at the very beginning of this was 0.1%. We had extremely low inflation right now, or at the beginning of this.
Yeah, exactly. So, but my point is yeah, if we weren't in any national debt or anything and we lived in a perfect world, sure, I would support something like that. But we can't do it because our dollar is becoming worth literally nothing.
I wouldn't even say it's becoming worth literally nothing. It's just that the prices, the thing about inflation is that the higher it goes doesn't necessarily mean the dollar is worth less. It's just that the prices of everything else go up. It's only whenever that inflation number gets up to 10%, 20%, that's whenever the dollar seriously starts to make less economic sense for investment and forex exchanges because I mean, what the hell are you investing in? So that's one of the biggest things. And our inflation rate right now is about 4.2% compared to 2.6% back in March.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, and that's one of the biggest things is that, yeah, I mean, but that's seriously like what I was trying to get from you is just like you're basically saying like, oh well, I mean, they're just like locking us down just because they feel like it, or just because like oh, they're just Democrats, so they don't care about rights or something like that. And you're basically just saying like, oh well, they just feel like locking everyone down, but whenever that's not really the case.
Well, I mean, they're locking people down, and for example, in Hawaii for 3 weeks, and for no reason at all.
Have you gotten that source yet?
Oh yeah. I forgot. I completely blanked. Yeah, I forgot. I kept stopped looking. I'll do it right now. 19. I don't know if you want to read all this right now, but I'll link it to you if you want.
I can read it.
All right.
Ew, future. Yeah, I know.
All right. I'll put it in private chat.
Who the hell is the points guy?
I don't even know, but I can link you another website if you like. It's actually just saying what the restrictions are for Hawaii right now. And I didn't have time to read through the whole thing, so that may not be the old COVID-19 lockdown. So if it's not, then tell me. But I know that the old COVID-19 lockdowns had it like that because my grandparents went to Hawaii, and that's what it was like.
All it's saying is that if you travel to Hawaii, then you need to get tested.
That must be the new one then.
Because this was posted 3 days ago.
Yeah, then that makes sense. Okay. What were the?
And that's really my main concern is just like if this is seriously how we react to the next pandemic, because like as I said in the previous live stream, I feel like COVID is just dress rehearsal for something along the lines of the bubonic plague in the future. And with overpopulation, with climate change, with a lot of these things that are coming in the next 50 years, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if within the next 50 years we end up having a second pandemic in which it infects more people than COVID ever did, and it kills more people than COVID ever did. It will probably kill, double, triple, quadruple what COVID will have by the end of it. So that's one of the biggest things, is that like until we have a pandemic that seriously threatens
Okay, so if you don't have
society as we know it.
So right now, wait 1 sec. So right now, if you don't have your vaccine, you have to do a mandatory 10-day quarantine where you can't go anywhere. Right now.
So what would be wrong with that?
Because you're being forced to stay in your house or in a hotel.
If you're traveling?
Yeah, if you travel
this is specifically for travelers, right?
Yes.
So why? So you're basically saying that to ensure that you do not have a sickness that you brought in from the continental United States, you're saying that it's the worst thing in the world for someone to be required to stay inside of a hotel room for 10 days, which is the incubation period of COVID, mind you.
Yes, because it curbs your civil liberties.
Even during a pandemic.
Yes. It takes away our civil liberties.
So you don't yeah, I'm just thinking. So you're saying that a state should not exercise its right to stop an epidemic from spreading from people that do not live in that state.
Yes, because you're literally putting someone in house arrest.
Okay, so
because there's a pandemic.
Instead of an American citizen, let's say another pandemic starts up in China. Do you think that it would be legal for the state of Hawaii to stop a person from travel, to require a person suspected or come from a place of an epidemic, like in China, in Africa, something like that? Would you think that it would violate their civil liberties for someone that came from a country that has a massive Ebola outbreak and require them to stay inside of a house for 5 to 10 days?
Well, the thing is if we put a travel restriction on somewhere at the time, if we put a travel restriction from somewhere because something's happening, then that's not against their civil liberties. That's just protecting our country. But if they come here and we make them stay in a house or a hotel, then yes.
Well, it's protecting our country in one way, but it's not protecting the security of a state, of a state of the United States, for them to do the same thing.
Yes, because if we're traveling from inside the United States and they're making us stay in a hotel for 10 days, then that is against the United States civil liberty of not even being convicted by a juror or being convicted by a judge.
Okay. I feel like we're just kind of cycling back and forth about civil liberties and all that, because I feel like I've kind of at least gotten my side out. I believe that it's it's important to know when your freedoms are being taken away from you, but at the same time, people need to realize, because if these people were basically doing it smart, they would be saying, I believe that they're going too far with these restrictions, but they're basically saying, like, denying that COVID even exists. They were basically earlier.
But why would I'm not denying COVID exists, because why would they make a fake virus to do it? Then people
you basically kind of alluded to that earlier.
I didn't say the virus was fake. What are you talking about?
You unless you were either alluding that it was a bioweapon or something like that. because you basically said like, how do we even know that like this is a real thing? Like, how do we not
I
know
never
that
said.
this
I don't
is
think I said that. If
then
I
what did
do,
you
I
say?
take that back. I don't know because I don't know. You have to quote me. But if I did, I take that back because I never said I don't believe the virus is fake. Because why would they fake something that they're trying to gain power from?
I don't necessarily think you said that it was fake. You didn't directly said that it was fake. You basically you were either alluding that it was fake or you were alluding that it was a bioweapon.
What's the bioweapon?
A bioweapon is a genetically engineered weapon created by a government anywhere in the world, and it houses like if it's like genetically modified Ebola, then if you like it can be made into like a missile or not a missile, but it basically it's like I can like infect myself with it, and then I go out, go to a concert or something like that, and then basically create a super spreader event, and then that's essentially a bioweapon.
I don't know. I don't even. I'm not really sure what a bioweapon is, but like, yeah, I never said the virus is fake, and I actually don't recall saying that. But what I am saying is that the government is trying to use it to their advantage to get power.
That's where I at least can disagree again. Because I know a lot of people are basically saying like, "Oh, the government just wants to take power." It's like someone. Pandemic is a state of emergency, and it's common that civil liberties are repressed, but it's for the sake of human lives, man. And I think that's exactly what I'm kind of alluding to. But then that's whenever it comes to the question, someone even said earlier that that it's like, are you willing to give up your civil liberties for protection? And I feel like, in terms of terrorism, in terms of like, the response to 9/11, that was a very valid question, because we ended up getting the Patriot Act, which ended up allowing the government to
The Patriot Act was so stupid. It has caught zero terrorists.
Yeah, but it's spied on a lot of
Innocent
Americans.
people.
And but one of the things is like, I mean, this is basically more of a threat than what was it, a swine flu was. Like, a lot of people, I mean, swine flu was before your time. You probably weren't paying attention 10 years ago, but we had a pandemic 10 years ago. And a lot of people...
Yeah, but the government didn't try to have us do nothing because there was a pandemic. They still let us go through.
We almost had to do that. That's the thing. You don't like, and that's one of the biggest things about the Obama administration, is that the Obama administration, said like, oh, we defeated H1N1 or whatever, ended up infecting like less than 1 million people in the United States and killed about 12,000 in the United States. It was declared a pandemic, but the thing about it is like, apparently, like, it was so close to coming. It was actually one of the biggest failures of the Obama administration, is that their response was just basically like shut down the border and don't think anything of it. But they were so worried about creating a panic. And if H1N1 was just a little more infective than it actually was, then we would have had a situation like this 10 years ago. But the fun thing about COVID is that it is more infective than H1N1. And it's infected nearly 200 million people worldwide. It's created millions upon tens of millions of severe cases, and it's killed nearly 5 million people. So we're dealing with and again, I mean, like I said earlier, this is dress rehearsal. I don't know how many times I've said it, but this is dress rehearsal for something worse. And I feel like that a lot of people like you are just gonna say like, oh well, I'm not gonna get the vaccine, but whenever something worse than COVID hits, Are you going to get your vaccine?
Depends.
Are you going to wear a mask? Are you going to lock down yourself in your house because you don't want to get sick or you don't want to die?
I probably would, but other people don't have to because this is America.
Even if we're dealing with a much deadlier disease than COVID.
Yep.
Okay. That's just as long as you understand the implications of policies like that, because that can lead to the deaths of millions of people.
Then they could stay home and get vaccinated.
But that's the thing, is that we can't make a vaccine. I mean, we were able to make it in record time, but if we're going to deal so for example, if instead of a severe acute respiratory virus, a SARS virus, because this was a respiratory virus, but if we're dealing with maybe a different type of respiratory virus, or if we're dealing with one that has either a quicker incubation period, or maybe one that doesn't even have an incubation period at all. But then it's just like you don't have well, actually, I take that back.
Here, let me just say this, okay? I agree. You could show me all the science. You could show me everything. And yeah, I'll wear a mask, whatever. If it's proven to work, I'll take the vaccine or whatever if it's proven to work. But Americans should not be forced to take the vaccine, forced to wear a mask, or forced to stay locked down. It's just curbing our civil liberties. And businesses have the right to tell you to do it. Any private entities do. But the government itself does not have the right to tell you to take a vaccine or tell you to stay at your house.
Here's another thing, and someone actually made this point in the comment. If masks don't work, if taking precautions doesn't save lives, then why did they have way lower numbers in Japan?
Yeah, I just said, even if it does, we shouldn't be forced to in America.
But actually, I mean, now that I think about it, thank you for the comment. I mean, Asia is like the best example about masks, about vaccines, about just anything.
Actually, people in Japan don't like the vaccine and don't want to take it.
But have you watched like footage of just Japan in general? You know how many people you ever see just walking around with masks on their face? Like even during, like, they did this like 5 years ago, whenever there was no pandemic, no
That's
disease,
good. That's fun.
even an epidemic.
That's cool. They could be obedient sheep. But what I'm saying is, in America, I'm just saying, in America, you don't have to do that because it's the land of the free. And sure, maybe in other countries where they're communism or whatever, they could do it. But all I'm saying is, even if you have the science to show me it works, we should not be forced to wear masks, stay locked down in our houses, or take vaccines. Because that's just not a part of America. And that's how our country becomes a dictatorship or whatever.
If we were doing the same things that the Chinese were doing at the beginning of this pandemic, I would agree with you. But we were not doing the same things that the Chinese were doing. But what my point is that if you actually look at the numbers in South Korea, I don't think there's a single Asian country that has had a terrible outbreak of this because of their attitudes towards disease. And that's what I also wanted to reiterate. Why do you think Japanese people are sheep?
I'm not saying all that would be racist to say that, or culturist or whatever. But I'm saying if there are people, the people that wear masks in Japan, if they could then, if they even wore it before the virus, then that's pretty much just being a sheep.
How?
Well, again, they have the right to do it, so they could do it if they want. All I'm saying is it's kind of silly.
Have you seen how many people are compacted into Japan?
Well, it depends. What part of Japan are you talking about? You can just say Japan.
The Kanto region.
Tokyo.
About 37 million people packed in like a bunch of sardines.
Yeah. Then they could wear masks if they want. But all I'm saying is that in America, we shouldn't have to do what the government, like stuff that the government tells us to do, like being locked down in our house without a fair jury trial, being convicted with a crime.
And that's one of the biggest things, is that if we had the Liberal Party as they're presented in Japan, in the United States right now, they would be way further out to the right than the Republicans would be. So that's one of the biggest things, is that you must be underestimating how conservative a lot of these Asian countries are, because you're basically saying like, oh well, I mean, if they're wearing masks, like when there's no pandemic or something like that. But that's the thing about it is, and that's why I'm saying, climate change and overpopulation is going to contribute to this, because that's how disease spreads. It's basically, I don't know if you're familiar with what urban density is called. Urban density is essentially how many people are in 1 square mile of a country. And Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, China, I mean, their urban density is extremely high compared to the United States. And that's why they have to wear a mask whenever they go outside, even whenever, COVID wasn't even around, because they're very susceptible to getting sick and spreading a disease all over the place because they're so packed together.
Okay, well, you keep telling me like this thing, like, okay, they're all so close together, they're gonna get sick, and okay, show me the science is probably real. They could get sick. You should wear a mask. But all I'm saying is that in America, you should not be forced to stay in your house and to not be able to go outside and to have to take a vaccine. That's all I'm saying. Even if that's against the science, that is what America was made for, is so you can be free. And you could keep saying the same thing. Oh, well, the science shows. Well, that's just my point. Even if I would do it, it doesn't take away that that's what America was made for.
So what about maybe 100 years ago, whenever we had the worst pandemic that has ever ravaged the planet since the bubonic plague? Whenever we basically took some similar precautions to stop the spread of that disease that killed 5% of the world population 100 years ago.
Probably say the same thing.
You still think that's so in any case scenario, you basically feel like that it is unconstitutional and curtails civil liberties, even if you're trying to stop the deaths of tens of millions of people.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna read through chat, and I think we can I'm gonna read through chat, and then I think we can go ahead and cease this live stream. And been streaming for nearly an hour and a half, a little longer than I was thinking.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I also appreciate you you at least having this conversation with me, so we could have like a dedicated conversation about it. Okay. So, restricting your civil liberties, protecting healthcare systems from collapsing. Yeah, that's also a good point that I wasn't able to get to. If you're at all familiar with, ICU beds and like how many ICU beds, because I mean, New York is a prime example of that they were basically like on a hair's edge of running out of ICU beds.
Yeah.
So that's one of the other benefits of lockdowns and asking people to, take those precautions. It's also to prevent our own healthcare system from collapsing. Just as Harry said, because it's basically like if we basically, did not try to curtail,
well, then I would probably, then my solution to that would be, if people are so ignorant that they will go outside and somewhere like I said, it is curbing our civil liberties, even in the Spanish flu. And I agree with that. But if people are so ignorant to go outside and to not stay in their houses, I would stay in my house. If they're that ignorant, then they shouldn't be able to get treatment for that if it's their fault.
But that's the thing, is that like whenever you have like half of the country basically saying that like I'm not going to let the government tell me what to do. I'm not going to listen to, like, even whenever they say there's a disease out there that's going to make you sick and then put you on a ventilator if you're more than 50 years old. That's one of the biggest things, is that, I mean, now you're saying that they're just being stupid, but whenever they're looking at the information that they have, or they're just basically ignoring that information because they're looking at it from a freedom standpoint, that's the point that I've been trying to make this whole time. It's that, and I mean, I guess this is also a kind of a good point. The problem with America is that individualism has too much power. And yeah, I mean, I guess one of the issues, I wouldn't even say issue because I value individualism, but it's that individualism right now has basically just been like, I'm not going to let the government tell me what to do because I'm not going to do it because I don't want to do it, or something like that.
But you should have the right to do that.
As long as, but whenever, you get surprised whenever you get sick, I mean, because people can just turn around and say like, why didn't the government do more to protect my dad from getting sick or something like that? Then it's just,
well, then they're just stupid fools.
Yeah, but then that, I mean, for example, if Trump basically didn't take the actions that he took on the federal level, that would have been one of the prime examples he got voted out. If it wasn't already one of the prime reasons why he got voted out, because of his response to COVID. His
response to COVID was pretty good. He got a vaccine out within a year.
Yeah, Operation Warp Speed was a pretty good job on his part, but then at the same time, he also downplayed the severity of it, like a lot of other people did.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that the severity is way higher than people make it out to be. Again, but I think we're just going in circles, so I think we should end the stream. It's almost been an hour and a half.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and agree with that. All right, I'll go ahead and wrap this up. All right. I appreciate that you were able to join us today, and that me and you were able to have a mostly productive debate. So I like even whenever I disagree with you, I'm not gonna sit here and say like, oh well, you're an idiot, or like people are gonna believe what they want to believe, and I at least if I'm able to, get my side out, you're able to get your side out, I feel like it's more successful, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Zaxi also made a comment. If wearing a seatbelt is a violation of civil liberties, then neither is wearing a mask. What do you think of that?
I don't know. Because that's risking other people's lives when you're on the road. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think if you don't want to wear a seatbelt,
just like wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, that's risking other people's lives.
Yeah, I guess.
Or not getting a vaccine, that's not risking other people's lives.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't think maybe not. If you don't want to wear a seatbelt, then I guess you're just an idiot. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, here's the thing. If you're not in the car with anyone, then don't wear a seatbelt if you don't feel you should. But I don't know.
But okay. I'll go ahead and God, this bug keeps flying all over my screen. All right. But I appreciate that you were able to come on today, even though this live stream was kind of like because it said Carlos and everyone was just like, "Where's Carlos at?" But I do appreciate that you were able to come on, and I look forward to our future live streams. So guys, if you have not, go ahead and subscribe to Gen Z. If you haven't subscribed to me, please go ahead and subscribe to me, because I want to go ahead and get to 5,000 subscribers. We are very close to 5,000. So me and Gen Z are still having a subscriber war that is ongoing. Yep. So let's go ahead and see who can get the 5,000 first. So go ahead and guys, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you guys want to see more content like this, hit the bell notification icon and hit the like button so you don't miss anything else. And I will see you guys in the next video. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.
See ya.